Rolling over into Canton and just going over some recent updates and some announcements and some systemically important organizations that have recently had Canton in their talk tracks. First, starting off here with this Euroclear event that's taking place. Jorgen Yukonen, probably butchering the crap out of that. He's the global head of innovation and digital asset at Euroclear. He's going to be attending this event where in a previous video, if you guys have missed it, I made a series of anywhere between 1 to 2, maybe even 3 videos proving that Canton Network is this unified ledger that the BIS and many other systemically important organizations were talking about for years. And I physically showed documents that prove and solidify that Canton was the one that they were talking about the entire time. So I'm not going to go over that entire breakdown right now. I'll maybe send the links to those videos from my YouTube research in the Discord, so you guys can go back and watch those if you did not. But what I find interesting is that this guy is going to be talking at an event from the 4th to the 5th of November. And what is he going to be talking about? As digital assets gain momentum in the evolving financial ecosystem, interoperability between blockchains, permission networks, and legacy systems is becoming critical. The concept of a unified ledger fabric offers a way forward, harmonizing data models, accelerating cross-border transactions, and transforming shared ledgers into scalable utilities for global finance. And Euroclear played a very big role in some of those previous video breakdowns that I was just mentioning to show how Canton Network was that unified ledger that these institutions were talking about. So, in that regards, if we come over here, this gentleman was just on a Stable Dash podcast, and I want you guys to listen to how much money Euroclear operates with on a monthly basis. So shout out to Stable Dash for this. This video still only has 17 views. Shout out to the researchers for sharing this one in the chat. Listen to what this guy here says about how they're a systemically important organization, and then we're going to listen to him talk about how and why he sits on the Canton Foundation.
Coming from something quite clear. When you run innovation for such a systemic infrastructure, and to give you a few numbers, we have more than 40 trillions of euro of assets under custody, and we process every month the equivalent of the world GDP. That's wow. Just to give a little bit of scale to the story. And it was clear that looking at what's happening there, we needed to.
Okay, so he just said that they have $40 trillion of assets under management, and he said on a monthly basis, they process the entire world's GDP. Okay, that is freaking huge, right? So continue to listen to what he says.
To be quite active in the digital asset space, and we took 2 specific directions. The first one was to say, we will do digital asset in the most regulated way possible. And we have built a platform for tokenized bond issuance that is 100% regulated under the deregulation. And we decided actually to solve a real problem. And we focused on solving the liquidity problem, because most of the bond issuances there, before we came to the play, were basically issued on public blockchain, sitting idle with no secondary market activity. And we have been able to create a full DLT platform focused on primary market distribution, and then connecting it to our traditional system with a digital twin, so we can near real time move on the collateral highway and benefit from all the secondary market activity.
Zach, you're muted now. Am I back?
Yes, you're back. Sorry.
Okay, great. Can you just repeat that one more time around on a given Monday, what volumes you're seeing? That blew me away in terms of GDP. Can you just say that again?
Yeah, so per month, we are basically processing the world GDP on our books. Again,
per month. Okay.
We're a quite systemic infrastructure. And what makes it great is somehow we are the invisible part of what makes the system work. So, if we go back to the...
So he said, somehow we are part of what makes the system work. We process an entire world's GDP in a month, and we're a systemically important organization. So there's all these narratives back and forth on Twitter, like what chains are going to rule the day, and like these retail perspectives that flow back and forth, right? And all that's fine and dandy, but in the end of the grand scheme of things, retail's perspective doesn't matter. And if you have Systemically important organizations that process the entire freaking world's GDP in a month, and they are sitting on the Canton Foundation and piping up Canton. You would think that like more people would pay attention, right? Well, that's the farthest thing from the case. It's like people have all these personal opinions because they don't sit from an institutional standpoint. But listen to what this guy says here about why they're co-chairing Canton.
Canton Network has definitely managed to get all Wall Street on their network because they have two components that they have designed natively: privacy and interoperability. And while on other networks, we still have solutions to get to there, it's a difference by trying to fix something and designing it natively.
What was the experience working directly with that team? I think we've
view, Canton Network has definitely managed to get all Wall Street on their network because they have two components that they have designed natively: privacy and interoperability. And while on other networks, we still have solutions to get to there, it's a difference by trying to fix something and designing it natively.
He's just said, while we have other networks trying to get there, there's a difference between trying to solve a problem and then designing the solution to the problems natively. And he specifically mentioned that that's what Canton has done. So just think about that. That's not some guy like randomly on the internet's perspective. This is coming from a systemically important organization that literally, if they failed, if their organization and their business failed, the world would freaking probably collapse and be devoured into chaos, right? So I just thought that that was interesting. Let's continue to listen to what he has to say.
What was the experience working directly with that team? I think we've been really impressed seeing the level of like extremely established, scaled institutions all over the world be really attracted to go working with that team, and that the unlocks that the type of infrastructure Canton provides brings. What was so unique about them, that team, that drew you in to want to work with them so closely?
So I think, just for clarity, we need to separate two things. First of all, Digital Asset Holding, which is the founder of Canton, and the Canton Foundation, which is in charge of the governance of the network. So that's two different teams. Obviously, everyone is working very closely. I think Yuval, Eric, Shaul, and the team has set really clear vision for the market. And not only they have set the vision, they have been able to execute as well on the vision and federate all the people there. And I think, being at the board of this foundation is quite exciting because you have the major institution today and you have a very unique mix of companies that are represented there and that have the ambition to basically move the market towards a more tokenized market in a very real, concrete, and scalable way.
What is the just practical responsibility or role that I'm looking at the Canton Foundation here, and I'm seeing premier members, Euroclear. They seem to be adding more and more of these really esteemed members to this group, specifically talking about the foundation. What does that practically look like in terms of your involvement, the experience that you've had working in that membership? Like, bring us a little bit into the experience of being a member there and what that means.
So today I'm co-chairing the foundation together with John Powell from DTCC. So that has been a interesting shift to get her perspective and everything that and what DTCC as well brings at scale to the story there. And when you sit at the intersection of how the new apps are coming on chain, everything they're working around collateral mobility, the topics around tokenomics, and how actually you get incentives to put assets on chain and how all that gets to work with native interoperability and, most important, privacy. That's a very unique setup today. You don't have many institutions that can combine all that and that can have so much brain power collecting all the board members that we have.
So the reason why I wanted to play that clip all the way through is because at the end, considering that they're a systemically important organization, you heard what they process on a monthly basis and how he said specifically that they are part of what makes the system work. He just mentioned that why they're focused on Canton is because of the tokenomics and the incentives that they provide, right? And so just think about that moving forward, is that there's these other layer ones that don't have these mechanics and these tokenomics baked in. And so if you have a foundation like Euroclear and the DTCC choosing the Canton Network, it has to be incentive aligned, most likely, for their clients that are going to use the network and are going to be able to benefit from incentive mechanisms long term as more money comes on chain and the utility of the network grows and scales. And that's not coming from some retail participant. That's coming from a systemically important organization. So again, I just thought that that was interesting. Not financial advice, but Canton is, of course, one of those layer one networks that I'm heavily focused on. Coming over here to an announcement from Keiko, I want to just take your attention back real fast before we get into that recent announcement where I believe CEO, yeah, this is the CEO, Jane King of Keiko Data, goes on to talk about how they're integrating with Canton and how they're bringing Bloomberg data to institutions directly through Canton, right? So just take a second and listen to this because this is going to go hand in hand with the recent announcement.
With the Canton Network. And they're, of course, on the cutting edge as well as of tokenization. Where do you see tokenization going?
Tokenization matters if you can then do something with the token. And one of the reasons we are so involved and so passionate about building on the Canton Network is that it is a network that is designed for capital markets and that has a very strong privacy by design element to the way they thought about the network. Privacy is absolutely critical to enabling capital markets applications. You will not have financial institutions, publicly displaying their financial positions or the types of contracts they are working on with their counterparts. So Canton is a network that is very well suited for capital markets application, and that also applies for data. Capital markets application by design, it's already the case in traditional finance, consume market data feeds in order to monitor contracts, monitor collateral value, to create mark-to-market, to price NAVs. I mean, everything consumes data. Financial, data is a key component of market infrastructure. So we are bringing that to the Canton Network.
Now, another announcement that you've had recently is with Bloomberg, which is well known as a data provider on Wall Street, has been for decades. Explain that relationship.
Absolutely, and this also ties back into our work with Canton. What we have announced with Bloomberg is that Bloomberg is working with Keiko in order to bring their licensed data to their users on the blockchain. What does that mean in practice? It means that an existing client of Bloomberg can decide that they are going to build some financial applications natively on the Canton Network, and that those applications that would consume Bloomberg data outside of the chain could now consume the data directly on chain in order to trigger the disintermediated execution of financial contract in a very seamless manner. So this is very important. Data is, one of the key elements to fuel financial applications, and now it is available natively on Canton.
Okay, data is the new oil, they say. So, Ombre, thank you. Now you're working with
Data is the new oil, right? Okay, so that's going to lead me over here to this post. I haven't released it yet, but upcoming here. Or maybe it did drop. Let's go and see. Okay, it did. All right, so I said here, Keiko just joined the Canton Network, and that already was a major institutional signal, right? That happened last year. But now, pairing that with ISDA, or the ISDA, the International Swaps and Derivatives Association membership, takes it to a whole nother level. This is what real adoption looks like. First, Keiko chose Canton as the validator and openly framed Canton's data layer as part of the future institutional grade market infrastructure, compliance and programmable workflows that alone was a big validation of where regulated on-chain capital markets are moving. Now, Keiko has joined ISDA, the global derivative standard setting body, helping shape risk management, market infrastructure, and policy across the derivatives ecosystem. Let that sink in. A digital asset data provider aligning with Canton's institutional blockchain network and ISDA's global derivatives framework. That is a convergence of on-chain infrastructure plus institutional data plus derivative market standards. This is how bridges get built between TradFi and tokenized markets. So let's come over to this announcement. We can see this is just from 4 days ago. Keiko has joined ISDA, the Global Industry Association for Derivatives Markets. This rabbit hole goes pretty deep, so I'm just going to scratch the surface on it. Keiko becomes the strategic partner on the Canton Network. So we're going to go back to June 12th, 2025. Okay. And we just heard the CEO from Keiko mention that partnership and how Canton's playing a huge role in the data and so on and so forth. But check this out. This is where it goes into detail on it. Where delivering a dedicated data layer to support institutional applications, this is what the Keiko and Canton partnership is going to allow and unlock. Building upon its expertise, Keiko is looking forward to delivering a dedicated data layer on Canton Network. This innovation layer will offer three core functionalities: trustless distribution, where the data layer will provide a secure and verifiable mechanism for Keiko and the third-party data providers to distribute their products on the Canton Network; enhanced readability and auditability. Canton market participants will be able to effortlessly generate purpose-built data feeds directly from their on-chain activity. This feature will streamline audit reporting, enhance transparency, and provide valuable insights into the network operations and individual participant performances. And then last, advanced composability. The data layer will embed powerful middleware components, enabling sophisticated multi-party workflows and programmatic access to Keiko's regulated pricing agent capabilities. Then down here it says, for instance, in an issuance process, multiple parties or issuers of legal counsel, custodians, or investors could securely and verifiably collaborate using trusted data endpoints at each stage, from origination and compliance checks to final settlement and reporting, all orchestrated through the Canton layer. Then down here it says, Keiko's approval as a super validator represents a significant milestone in building institutional scale capital market infrastructure. Our role goes far beyond validation. We are enabling sophisticated data workflows that traditional financial players expect when operating in regulated environments. Now, if we come over here to the recent announcement, Keiko joining ISDA to support international digital asset markets, check this out. Keiko has just joined the International Swaps and Derivatives Association, the global industry association for derivatives markets. The membership reflects Keiko's continued commitment to supporting the development of transparent institutional-grade digital asset markets. Now think about it. Keiko is using what network for data for institutions? Canton. Keiko just partnered with ISDA, and look at the recent announcements that Canton was a part of in early 2025, around the same time that Keiko partnered with Canton, right? January 16th, 2025. And now considering that Keiko just partnered with ISDA, the International Swaps and Derivatives Association, look at this. It says, the Canton Network today announced the initiation of a project in partnership with Digital Asset, QCP, and a select group of their counterparties as initial users. This solution will create cutting-edge on-chain collateral and margin management solutions for bilateral derivatives, leveraging the Canton Network's unique privacy capabilities. So they've already started to put these things in motions for the derivatives markets to fully come on-chain. And not just come on-chain on any one network, because it'll be multiple, but for a fact, I can almost assume, based off this research, that Canton will sit underlying some of this infrastructure in the future. Then here, it even mentions ISDA in the Canton Network announcement. It says the collaboration will deliver a solution with several key capabilities, including on-chain collateral agreements, encoded as smart contracts to allow for automatic execution and enforcement of terms in line with ISDA, CSA, and initial variation margin compliance requirements. Here's another announcement that mentions the same thing. The Canton Network today, and this is April 3rd, 2025, announced that Flowdesk is joining a key participant in the development of on-chain collateral and margin management solutions for bilateral derivatives. As part of the ongoing commitment to empower evolution, Flowdesk is excited to be a part of shaping the future of collateral management through the Canton Network, said Simon Nursery, who is the head of derivatives at this organization, Flowdesk, where he said, Canton Network offerings provide the ability to manage collateral and margin on-chain, aligning with Flowdesk's mission to create scalable and robust infrastructure for the digital asset economy. And again, this solution, it complies with ISDA and the CSA initial and variation margin frameworks. So there's a second mention of another fundamental development on Canton in regards to ISDA. Then if we come over here, ISDA on their LinkedIn profile even made an announcement on Canton Network's accomplishments, where here you can see this is the ISDA's LinkedIn from 2 months ago, and it says, a fourth set of on-chain repo transactions has been completed on the Canton Network. Then if we come over here, and we go all the way back to April 9th, 2019, Digital Asset and ISDA introduced a tool to help drive the adoption of ISDA CDM. Digital Asset, i.e. the creator of Canton Network, announced that it is working with ISDA to develop an open source reference code library that will help derivatives market participants adopt the ISDA common domain model. This new tool will assist developers in implementing the ISDA CDM and solutions for trading and managing derivatives via DOML, the smart contract language created by Digital Asset. The ISDA CDM is the first, I repeat, is the first industry solution to tackle the lack of standard conventions and how derivatives trade events on process and represented. Developed in response to regulatory changes, high costs associated with current manual processes, and a demand for greater automation across the industry, the ISDA CDM establishes a common blueprint for events that occur throughout the derivatives lifecycle, paving the way for greater automation. So my speculation that Canton and this announcement with Keiko partnering with ISDA and Keiko partnering with Canton for this data infrastructure layer, right, was solidified when I came to find out that Canton, years ago, back in 2019, when nobody heard of Canton, underlying Canton was actually the first, says it right here, to provide an industry solution to tackle the lack of standard conventions on how derivatives trade events take place. Right? It says it right here. This is like mind-blowing confirmation that Canton, for a fact, is being embedded into traditional finance. And in my personal opinion, again, anybody, ignoring these things 5-10 years down the road, when all this stuff really finally materializes and we see trillions of dollars flood into on-chain finance, we're going to see Canton sitting in the top of everything that's going on in the background now when it really finally materializes, right? So I just wanted to bring all this to everybody's attention. Really great research. All of this stuff can be found inside the private CYPRX Discord in the crypto research section. None of this is financial advice. We talked about Canton. Don't go out there and buy Canton coin because I just showed you guys how they're connected to the freaking International Swaps Derivatives Association. Doesn't mean shit for price right now. At the end of the day, always assess your own personal risk. Always understand that investing in crypto is a risky business, one within itself. Do your due diligence, make your own assessments and adjustments in this space. I know that I'm doing mine. I know where I'm positioning my capital for, the front running of these financial institutions before they come in. With that being said, many blessings to you guys. If you enjoyed, do us that favor, smash that thumbs up button, subscribe to the platform, and I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown. For those of you guys on the Zoom call, I'll leave the floor open for discussion if you guys have anything, but that is my presentation for today.